Don and Glenn had asked me to play up in San Jose. That's where I first, because I had met Don and Glenn down at the Troubadour, just bumping into each other.
Randy Meisner, the soft-spoken founding member of the Eagles, stunned fans before his death at 77 in July 2023. Known for staying out of the spotlight and drama, Meisner dropped a bombshell. He reportedly named 7 musicians he deeply resented throughout his career. Yes, Randy, the quiet one. At the end of his life, he finally opened up. Not 1, not 2, but 7 names. 7 musicians he absolutely couldn't stand. And these weren't petty grudges. These were raw, unfiltered truths from a man who had stayed silent for decades. So grab a drink, get comfortable, and stick with me, because what you're about to hear might be one of the most unexpected and honest confessions in rock and roll history. Glenn Frey. At the dawn of the Eagles' legendary journey, Randy Meisner and Glenn Frey seemed destined for a harmonious partnership. But what began with promise eventually spiraled into one of the most infamous feuds in classic rock, helping push Meisner out of the band and leaving deep emotional wounds. Their story starts at the iconic Troubadour in Los Angeles in the early 70s. It was there their paths first crossed. And in a moment of band mythology, Meisner claimed to have named the Eagles after seeing an eagle soar overhead while meditating in the desert. Their creative connection was undeniable, but so were their contrasting personalities from day one. As Meisner once recalled, Glenn, with his playing and his personality, he was one special person. He was the frontman, the talker, the guy who worked the room. And Randy, I was more shy, staying in the background. This stark contrast would become a source of growing tension, especially as the spotlight and power shifted toward Frey and Don Henley. Meisner, with a hint of quiet frustration, once likened them to the Lennon and McCartney of the Eagles. As the band skyrocketed to fame, that creative dominance pushed Meisner further into the shadows. The tension finally exploded during the Hotel California tour in June 1977, at a show in Knoxville, Tennessee, a night that would live in Eagles' infamy. The flashpoint, Take It to the Limit, a fan favorite that featured Meisner's soaring vocals. He didn't want to sing it that night. He was struggling, sick, and anxious about hitting the high notes. But Frey pushed him. Randy, it's going to be okay. You can sing it. Let's just go back out and do it. But Randy kept saying no. And then Frey reportedly snapped. Well, FAKU then. Things turned physical. Meisner threw a punch. Police tried to step in, but Henley waved them off. Stay out of this, he reportedly said. This is personal. Real F-King personal. In public, Meisner later downplayed the event. One lousy mistake, he said. I was provoked. There were disagreements, yeah. But fights? No. How did Glenn Frey shape Meisner's exit? In the aftermath of the Knoxville incident, Frey essentially issued an ultimatum. Don't sing it? Fine. Then why don't you just quit? And that was it. A confrontational challenge that sealed Meisner's fate. He stayed until his final show on September 3, 1977, in East Troy, Wisconsin. But the writing was already on the wall. It was pure hell, Meisner recalled. Nobody was talking to me. Don and Glenn had seized control. Decisions were made without him. He felt like hired help in a band he helped create. His final creative contribution, Try and Love Again, was buried near the end of the Hotel California album, almost as an afterthought. Yet despite everything, when Frey died in 2016, Meisner didn't speak with bitterness. He spoke with heart. I couldn't believe he went so quick, Meisner said, tearfully. When I heard yesterday, I started crying. You're like brothers in a band like that. We all loved each other. I sure will miss the guy. He even expressed regret over missed chances. I was looking forward to this one, the Kennedy Awards. I thought, man, this could be the last time we'll all be together. Now, that really hurts. And in a twist few expected, Meisner revealed that when he was hospitalized in 2013, choking and slipping into a coma, it was the Eagles, Glenn and the rest, who paid for everything. They paid for everything, me being in the hospital. And in the end, the song that once drove them apart became his tribute. This is very sad for me. I'm sad we couldn't take it to the limit one more time. Ever wonder what really goes on behind those smooth harmonies and sold-out tours? Randy Meisner held his tongue for decades, but when he hit 77, he finally named names. 7, to be exact. And no, this wasn't just some grumpy old rocker rant. This was deeply personal. Why did he stay silent for so long? And why did he decide to speak out now? Stick around, especially for one name that changes everything. Don Henley, the man who helped shape the Eagles' sound and success, also played a major role in the complicated relationship that pushed Meisner to the edge. As the band climbed the charts, Henley and Glenn Frey steadily took control, creating a power structure that left Meisner feeling sidelined in the very band he helped create. Henley himself admitted this dynamic in a 2001 interview on Charlie Rose, saying rock bands work best as a benevolent dictatorship, with the main songwriters, him and Frey, naturally holding the reins. This mindset dictated how decisions were made throughout the Eagles' history. As their creative partnership solidified, Henley and Frey gradually steered the band's direction. Meisner saw this shift up close. He noticed how Don and Glenn called all the shots and left him feeling more like hired help than an equal partner. The money side of things reflected this imbalance too. When the Eagles reunited in the 1990s, Henley and Frey demanded a payment structure heavily weighted in their favor, a stark contrast to the days when earnings were split evenly. So, were Henley and Meisner just creative opposites? Absolutely. At the heart of their tensions were clashing musical tastes. In a 1975 Rolling Stone interview, Meisner openly said, "I'm probably the only one in the band who loves funky rock and roll, trashy music, and R&B. I don't agree with some of our images either, but Don and Glenn have it covered." His love for raw, soulful sounds often clashed with the polished, controlled image Henley envisioned. Meisner described himself as shy and nervous about putting himself out there, completely different from Henley's confident approach to performing and publicity. This fundamental difference made it harder for Meisner to fit into the evolving band. In the History of the Eagles documentary, Henley painted Meisner as a hypochondriac and a major pain in the ass, a harsh description that many saw as unfair given Meisner's genuine health struggles. About the infamous Knoxville incident, Henley suggested Meisner had been partying too hard the night before, brushing off his reported illness. This version of events painted Meisner as irresponsible, while highlighting Henley and Frey's supposed patience. The documentary naturally focused on Henley and Frey. They wrote most of the songs, were in the band through thick and thin, and had solo careers to boot, so their perspective dominated, often overshadowing others, especially Meisner. Did you know Meisner publicly responded to Henley? After leaving the Eagles, Meisner rarely badmouthed Henley, choosing diplomacy despite their conflicts. Still, he admitted the creative battles weighed heavily on him. His last days with the band were heartbreaking. "Those last days on the road were the worst," he said. "Nobody was talking to me, or hanging out after shows, or doing anything. I was made an outcast of the band I'd helped start." Faced with increasing hostility, Meisner's decision to quit was about survival. When it got to the point of sanity or money, he told People magazine in 1981, "I thought I'd rather have sanity." Those words hinted at the psychological toll of Henley and Frey's tight grip on the band. Despite everything, Meisner reunited with Henley and the Eagles for their 1998 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, a rare moment of coming together after years of tension. Interestingly, decades later, when Meisner faced serious health issues in 2013 and 2014, he revealed something surprising. His former bandmates, including Don Henley, helped cover his medical bills. Behind the scenes, some form of reconciliation had quietly taken place. But even with that gesture, the deep-rooted power imbalance between Meisner and Henley never truly healed. In the end, Meisner's relationship with Henley perfectly captured a classic rock band struggle. Creative brilliance tangled with difficult personalities and complex power plays that eventually became impossible to sustain. Enter Irving Azoff. Infamous for his aggressive management style, Azoff played a major role in the Eagles' massive commercial success, and also in the complicated legacy Meisner left behind. Known for ruthless business tactics, Azoff became a lightning rod for much of Meisner's frustration over his marginalized status in the band. Azoff joined the Eagles in the early 1970s, quickly establishing himself as a powerful force in the music industry. Don Henley famously joked during their 1998 Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, "He may be Satan, but he's our Satan." When pressed about the comment later, Azoff clarified, "That's not accurate. Mr. Henley said, 'He may be Satan, but he's our Satan.'" Steely Dan co-founder Walter Becker shared similar sentiments about Azoff, saying the band hired him because he impressed them with his taste for the jugular and his bizarre spirit. Azoff's fierce negotiation skills benefited the Eagles in business but fueled internal tensions, especially for members without Henley and Frey's clout. Azoff's management clearly favored Henley and Frey. He formed a close bond with Frey, partly because they shared a passion for golf, which sometimes dictated the band's touring schedule. Frey would insist on booking the tour around where he wanted to play golf, Azoff admitted. This arrangement occasionally frustrated other band members. Henley once called Azoff to complain, "Why the F are we starting a tour in Charlotte, North Carolina, when we're in a hotel in Hilton Head? Is this AF golf tour?" For Meisner, the situation felt increasingly suffocating. Multiple accounts suggest Meisner believed Azoff sided with Henley and Frey in both creative and business decisions, leaving him sidelined. The tension only worsened after Meisner left the band and tried to build a solo career. Following his solo album release, Meisner confronted Azoff about the lack of promotional support. "I was wondering why we weren't getting any airplay," Meisner said, "and I was getting a little frustrated, so I went to see Irving. What happened next was brutal. He went crazy and started shouting at me all the way down the stairs. He said, 'Get the hell out of here. You're done.'" Things spiraled further when Meisner discovered his former bandmates may have actively worked against him. Later, Meisner claimed, "I found out that Don and Glenn had called Irving and said that if he was going to manage me, they were going to find another manager." This suggests a coordinated effort to professionally isolate Meisner after his Eagles exit. Azoff's influence didn't stop there. He played a significant role in shaping the public narrative around the Eagles, especially Meisner's departure. The History of the Eagles documentary was Azoff's brainchild, launched around the band's 40th anniversary, giving him considerable sway over how the story was told. Critics argued the documentary presented a heavily biased version of Meisner's exit. One source said, "It was almost like Irving was seeking revenge against Randy." The portrayal of Meisner's departure clearly favored Don, Glenn, and Irving himself. It was all one-sided. The entire documentary is very pro-Irving, one insider noted. Furthermore, the film reinforced the story that Meisner refused to sing "Take It to the Limit" at the Knoxville concert, a narrative disputed by some sources. One can only speculate why the tale about the Knoxville concert and "Take It to the Limit" was ever fabricated in the first place. What purpose does this falsified story serve, other than to paint Irving Azoff, Don Henley, and Glenn Frey in the best possible light while diminishing Randy Meisner and his contributions? After Meisner left the Eagles, his relationship with Azoff completely collapsed. Dumped by Azoff's frontline management, Meisner struggled to move his solo career forward. "Irving was too busy for me," Meisner recalled. "Elektra didn't have any faith in me. That really hurt." When the Eagles reunited for the Hell Freezes Over tour in 1994, Meisner reached out to Azoff and Frey, hoping to join. His request was flatly rejected. To make things worse, none of Meisner's songs or vocal performances made it into the reunion setlist, a move he believed was designed to deny him royalties. "You'd think you'd be mentioned if you helped with 6 albums, but they act like I never even played with them," he lamented. As a result, Meisner felt professionally ostracized, claiming, "They blackballed me in the industry to the point where I couldn't get a record deal or a decent date or anything." This perceived industry blacklisting, coupled with ongoing health problems, fueled Meisner's personal struggles and financial hardships. Randy Meisner was always seen as the band's peacekeeper. So what pushed him to resent not 1 or 2, but 7 fellow musicians? Wait till you hear the names. Some are truly shocking. Was it jealousy, betrayal, or just plain rock and roll drama? Stick around, the last name hits deep. Don Felder. Unlike the rocky relationships Meisner had with the Eagles' power duo, his connection with guitarist Don Felder began as genuine friendship before souring into mutual disappointment. Their story shows how band politics can fracture even the closest bonds. When Felder joined the Eagles in 1974, he quickly connected with Meisner. Both shared similar positions in the band, talented musicians often overshadowed by Henley and Frey. Felder spoke warmly of Meisner, calling him one of the nicest, sweetest, most talented, and funniest guys I've ever known, with a great heart and a loving soul. Their friendship went beyond work. In a 2008 interview with Howard Stern, Felder mentioned maintaining friendships with Bernie Leadon and Randy Meisner after their departures, contrasting sharply with his communication with Henley and Frey, which went strictly through lawyers. After Meisner left in '77, he reportedly made a pact with Felder and Joe Walsh to create music outside the Eagles' tight confines. This alliance promised creative freedom away from the band's rigidity, something Felder later described as suffocating. Sadly, the trio never came together. Felder said, "I often tried to break the ice with Don and Glenn, but it always felt like a professional relationship." This failure left Meisner feeling betrayed by Walsh and Felder alike. In 2008, Felder released his tell-all memoir Heaven and Hell: My Life in the Eagles, 1974 to 2001. The book detailed many disputes with Henley and Frey, especially over money, which led to Felder's firing and subsequent lawsuits. Still, Meisner felt Felder's book didn't properly recognize his contributions. One insider noted Felder was poking his nose, and his lawyers, too much into the accounting books, hinting at similar financial disputes Meisner faced. Felder himself admitted shortcomings in how the band's history was told. "I felt a lot of the history of the band members before they joined the Eagles was left out. Most of it was about Don and Glenn." Meisner was disappointed that Felder, once a trusted friend, didn't stand up stronger for his legacy. After the History of the Eagles documentary aired, Meisner felt betrayed by how his story was portrayed, and Felder offered only minimal corrections despite his own battles with band leadership. When Meisner was excluded from the Eagles' 1994 reunion tour, he reportedly reached out to several former bandmates, including Felder. Yet meaningful support never came. As Meisner said, "You'd think you'd be mentioned if you helped with 6 albums, but they act like I never even played with them." Still, when Meisner passed in 2023, Felder posted a heartfelt tribute. "It breaks my heart to hear of his passing. His voice stirred millions every time he sang Take It to the Limit. We had some wild and wicked fun memories together, brother. God bless you, Randy, for bringing so many people joy and happiness." Joe Walsh joined the Eagles in 1975, replacing Bernie Leadon, and brought a harder rock edge to the band's sound, an evolution that deeply impacted Randy Meisner's role. Looking to move away from their country rock roots, the Eagles recruited Walsh, a skilled guitarist with success in the James Gang and as a solo artist. His arrival sparked concerns, mainly from Don Henley, who worried Walsh might be too wild. But Walsh quickly left his mark, co-performing the iconic guitar duet with Don Felder on Hotel California and contributing the riff for Life in the Fast Lane. Walsh's addition coincided with a major shift in the Eagles' musical direction. The early country flavor nearly vanished, replaced by a tougher sound. This shift fundamentally changed the band dynamics Meisner had known. During the intense recording sessions for the long run, tensions reached a breaking point. According to multiple accounts, Joe Walsh reportedly approached Randy Meisner and Don Felder about forming their own band, excluding Don Henley and Glenn Frey. This alleged plan led Henley to brand Walsh as an insidious troublemaker who helped fracture the group. In a 1989 Chicago Tribune interview, Henley claimed Walsh was a divisive presence, covertly stirring up factionalism within the band. Yet the trio scheme never came to fruition, leaving Meisner feeling abandoned when Walsh ultimately stayed with the Eagles. Notably, no accounts mention Walsh intervening or supporting Meisner during his tumultuous exit. When the infamous Knoxville incident happened in 1977, Walsh apparently stayed silent. Hotel California was the last Eagles album to feature founding member Meisner, who left abruptly after the tour. Walsh continued with the band, accepting Meisner's replacement, Timothy B. Schmidt. Walsh's loyalty to the band over friendship became especially clear when he performed Take It to the Limit, Meisner's signature song, after Meisner's departure, a move Meisner saw as erasing his legacy. Despite these professional setbacks, Walsh and Meisner's personal relationship remained complicated. Walsh, no stranger to battling addiction himself, reportedly reached out to Meisner during his darkest struggles, recognizing parallels in their experiences. Years later, Walsh publicly acknowledged Meisner's talent, saying simply, "Randy never knew how great he was." Following Meisner's death in July 2023, Walsh posted an Instagram tribute, "An honor and privilege to share the stage with. Randy was a great guy with an unforgettable voice. Here's to always being a dreamer, my friend. R.I.P. Still, this late recognition did little to mend the wounds from what Meisner felt was Walsh's failure to stand by him when it counted most. You probably thought Randy Meisner, the soft-spoken Eagles founder, was too nice to hate anyone, right? Think again. At 77, he finally let it all out, and the names he dropped, they weren't nobodies. So why did one of rock's most humble legends quietly carry a list of 7 musicians he couldn't stand? Buckle up. The 7th name will leave your jaw on the floor. Jim Messina. Before his Eagles days, Meisner's first brush with musical betrayal came from Jim Messina during their brief but crucial time together in Poco. So, what was Jim Messina's role in Poco? After Buffalo Springfield dissolved in 1968, guitarist Jim Messina teamed up with Richie Furay to form Poco. Originally named Pogo, Messina served as both guitarist and producer, holding significant sway over the band's direction. The lineup, Messina, Furay, Meisner, Rusty Young, and George Grantham, signed with Epic Records on December 5, 1968, and immediately started recording their debut album Pickin' Up the Pieces. Messina's dual role as performer and producer created an inherent power imbalance that ultimately strained band dynamics. Though initially sharing creative duties, Messina's technical knowledge gave him leverage over the others. The relationship broke down decisively during mixing sessions for Poco's debut album. Meisner called the studio, asking to join the final mix, but was firmly denied. He later recalled, Jimmy, Messina and Richie were in the studio. We'd finished recording and started mixing. I called down and said, "Yeah, I'd like to listen to it." Richie said, "No, just Jimmy and I gonna do it." Meisner then issued an ultimatum: "If you're not gonna let me down there, I'm just gonna quit." Years later, during a Poco reunion, Messina admitted his mistake, telling Meisner, "Randy, I didn't care if you came down, Richie did. If I'd known, I would have let you come down." After Meisner's departure, Poco took the extraordinary step of removing his image from the album cover painting and replacing it with a dog. Although Poco kept Meisner's bass parts and backing vocals in the final mix of their debut album, they deleted his lead vocals and replaced them with performances by drummer George Grantham. This symbolic erasure illustrated how swiftly the band moved to diminish Meisner's contributions. Ultimately, Meisner's exit stemmed directly from his exclusion from the creative process. The dispute over mixing privileges exposed deeper issues regarding respect and collaborative equality. Jim Messina left Poco in 1970, blaming Richie Fure's tight control over the band's sound, a situation similar to Meisner's later struggles with control in the Eagles. After Buffalo Springfield broke up, Fure and Messina formed Poco and brought in Meisner for his unique high vocals. Fure led the band firmly, which eventually pushed Meisner out. During the final mix of Poco's debut album, Meisner asked to join but was denied by Fure, prompting Meisner to quit. Fure later said it was his band and that Meisner never really fit in. After Meisner left, Poco erased him from the album cover and re-recorded his lead vocals with the drummer. Meisner later accepted he was inexperienced, while Fure regretted hiring him, saying they should have chosen Timothy B. Schmidt instead. Despite their rocky past, Meisner joined Fure on stage for Poco's 50th anniversary concert in 2018, showing some healing over time.